Hi there. If you found your way here, chances are you once loved someone who made you question, did they ever truly value me? This video isn't about shaming anyone. It's about bringing clarity to the question your heart deserves to have answered. Today, we're diving into what really happens when the narcissist finally realizes they've lost someone truly irreplaceable, you. I'm not here to sensationalize. I'm here to share truth drawn from experience, from research, and from countless stories of people who were broken and then rebuilt stronger. So if any part of this resonates with you, I invite you to hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and stay with me until the end, because by then, you won't just understand the narcissist, you'll begin to reclaim the deep, undeniable value of who you are. Let's begin with a simple yet powerful truth. Narcissists don't truly lose people, they lose control. And when they lose someone like you, the entire illusion they've built begins to collapse, piece by piece. At the start, being with a narcissist doesn't usually feel like chaos. It often feels like destiny sweet, understanding, even as if they were made for you. They listen, they empathize, they seem to know exactly what you've been missing. But what you're seeing isn't connection, it's strategy. A narcissist doesn't build relationships. They establish emotional transactions, where only one party ever intended to be sincere, and that party was you. You came in with a whole heart, and that made you the perfect supply. You were kind. You were patient. You gave them a sense of worth, something they can't build from within. But here's what they never plan for authentic people eventually see through the mask. Real hearts wake up. And when you began to realize that you were being used, manipulated, disrespected, that's when their grip started to slip. The part that terrifies a narcissist isn't the breakup itself. It's the fact that they no longer have the power to affect you. They can't hurt you like before. They can't pull your emotions back into their chaos with a half-baked apology or a last-minute gesture. Why? Because now you see it. You see them. And that awareness is something they fear more than anything else. So when a narcissist realizes they've lost someone real, they don't just miss you, they unravel. They begin to spiral messaging from unknown numbers, creating fake social accounts to stalk you, sending songs you once shared, trying to rekindle the past. Some will even use mutual friends or family to check in on you, to plant seeds of nostalgia, to test if you're still emotionally available. This is what's called hoovering, and you know now. It's just the same cycle trying to restart. The irony is, even after you're gone, you're still at the center of their mind, not because they love, but because they're addicted to the control they once had over you. And when you no longer react, no longer cry, no longer plead or explain, that's when they feel the most powerless. They didn't just lose a source of supply. They lost the mirror that once reflected the image they wanted to believe about themselves. You were their stabilizer not because you were weak, but because your love came from strength. You had their back, fixed their messes, calmed their chaos. And now, without you, their life is a storm with no anchor. The people around them, their family, children, co-workers are beginning to feel the weight of that instability because no one else can take on the role you once carried so quietly and so completely. You were the exception, and they know it, but they only realize that after the damage is done. That's why they panic. That's why they come crawling back, not because they've changed, but because they can't stand the reality that you've grown strong enough to walk away for good. And then, the moment they can no longer control you is the moment the narcissist's true face begins to show, no longer needing to hide. They start to perform, and they're incredibly convincing. They might cry, beg, and plead like a wounded child, only to switch roles days later and portray themselves as the betrayed victim. They morph from helpless to mature, from heartbroken to heroic, slipping in and out of identities, all for one purpose: to pull you back into the emotional pit you fought so hard to escape. And if you're wondering, what roles will they play to manipulate my empathy and drag me back in, I invite you to keep watching. 1. Playing the victim to make you feel guilty. When a narcissist realizes they've lost someone irreplaceable, someone genuine, deeply loving, and self-sacrificing like you, they don't face that truth with grace. They don't reflect on the harm they caused. They don't take responsibility for their emotional immaturity. Instead, they do something far more dangerous. They rewrite the narrative. And in this new version, you're no longer the one who loved them wholeheartedly. You become the villain. They begin to complain to mutual friends, whisper to family members, or post vague, morally loaded statements on social media. They'll say they did everything they could, that they loved with all their heart, that they don't even know what went wrong, and that you were the one who suddenly walked away. They might even shed a few public tears, convince others you abandoned them in their darkest moment. These words may not come to you directly, but they'll circle back through a few concerned friends, or appear in subtle suggestions like, maybe you should give them another chance. And that's when it happens. You start doubting yourself. You begin to wonder, was I too harsh, too cold? Did I leave without saying enough? But that's the brilliance of this manipulation. They don't need to convince you with logic. They just need to trigger your guilt. And for people who once loved deeply, guilt is one of the easiest levers to pull. In psychology, this tactic is known as Darvo deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. The narcissist applies it instinctively. They deny ever hurting you, ever manipulating, gaslighting, or neglecting you. Then, they attack not always through direct confrontation, but with whispered rumors, half-truths, and even calculated silence. Finally, they flip the script entirely, casting themselves as the wounded soul, while you, the one who endured so much, become the one who caused the pain. What makes this so dangerous is that it bypasses your intellect and strikes right at your moral core. You're not cold-hearted, you're the one who once gave your all. You forgave, you believed, you stayed longer than you should have. And now, seeing them suffer, you feel guilty. But here's the truth. Guilt doesn't mean you did something wrong. It only means you still have a conscience, and tragically, that's what they're now weaponizing against you. They're not grieving the loss of your love. They're grieving the loss of their grip on you. When you left and didn't fall apart, when you didn't crumble or beg or return to them, that shattered their ego more than anything else. They can't tolerate the idea that you're healing, moving forward, thriving all without them. And so they play the victim not out of sorrow, but to pull you back in, to make you explain, defend, and once again, be caught in their emotional web. This is the moment when your next step becomes critical. You must hold fast to your truth. Remember the sleepless nights, the tears you cried alone, the countless times you forgave what should never have needed forgiving. Remember the emotional confusion, the silence, the devaluation. You didn't leave because you were cruel. You left because you had finally spent too long in a place where your heart was no longer respected. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't need to justify your peace. You don't need to correct every lie. Let time and your quiet healing speak louder than any fabricated narrative. Because one thing remains true, truth doesn't need defending, it endures, even when twisted stories try to bury it. And when they see that you're still standing, still whole, still radiant, still walking with freedom and dignity, that's when their entire performance falls apart. And you, once cast as the villain, now step forward into the role you were always meant to play, the author of your own life. And when they realize that playing the victim can no longer pull you back, when your silence and composure remain unmoved by their sighs or tears, that's when they shift to a new battlefield, destroying your reputation. Because if they can't win you back through pity, they'll try to drag you down through the contempt of others. They know that if they can't possess you, they must break the image of you. Only when the world begins to doubt you, criticize you, and isolate you do they feel as though they've regained balance. And it is at that very moment that you become the target of a calculated, dangerous, and insidious smear campaign. 2. The smear campaign. You won't see them attacking you outright on social media. No, a narcissist isn't that foolish. They operate in the gray areas with vague, cryptic posts like, "Some people only pretend to love you until they no longer need you," or "It hurts when you give someone your whole world and get betrayal in return." These aren't direct accusations, but everyone who knew the two of you as a couple will instinctively associate those words with you. They whisper in the ears of mutual friends, "I did everything I could, but she changed so much." Or, "I think they're already dating someone new right after the breakup. That was fast." They plant seeds of doubt. They don't blatantly lie, they release half-truths, suggestive questions, and let others construct a twisted narrative on their own. From once being seen as the devoted, kind partner, you suddenly become the heartless one in other people's eyes. The truth no longer matters. What they need is to dim the light radiating from you, because that light, once it no longer shines on them, becomes a mirror reflecting the darkness they live in. Smearing your name is a tactic of someone in panic yet unwilling to admit it. They can't understand why you didn't crumble. They can't accept that you can still smile, still move forward, still be loved without them. So they resort to one thing, destroying your image in the eyes of the world, in a desperate attempt to soothe the wound festering inside their fractured ego. This tactic isn't about defeating you, it's about not feeling defeated. To a narcissist, image is everything, and when they can no longer control you, the only thing left to manipulate is how others perceive you. So don't be surprised if you start to feel isolated. Some mutual friends grow cold. People who used to be close suddenly keep their distance. Not because they're bad people, but because they're confused between two stories on one side. There's you, the one who chooses silence, who doesn't argue, who doesn't defend, and on the other side, there's them, the one spreading information, the one who appears vulnerable and wounded. And when the smear campaign fails to produce the results they hoped for, when the public doesn't entirely turn against you, when people around you still see through the illusion, they switch roles once again. This time, the narcissist fully steps into a new performance, the repentant sinner. They don't shout or blame anymore. No. Now their tone softens, their eyes carry a weight of sorrow, and their words are carefully chosen, layered with intention. "I know I made mistakes, but I'm trying to change. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just a chance to be heard one last time." These are not true apologies. They are traps subtle forms of manipulation disguised as remorse. 3. Playing the role of the repentant sinner. In this new act, they are no longer the aggressive manipulator or the falsely accused victim. They are now the one who has learned a hard lesson, the one who strayed but found clarity. And the terrifying part is, they can perform it so convincingly that even people who once knew the truth about them begin to question what's real. They speak of the past with a quiet, somber tone, sometimes with tears in their eyes, claiming they were once hurt, abandoned. And that's what made them become someone they never wanted to be. Their regret is presented as an inner awakening. But if you look closely, you'll notice something critical. They are not truly sorry for what they did to you. They are mourning the loss of control over you. Their sorrow isn't directed at the pain they caused. It's aimed at the wounded ego that can't accept being left behind. They may go back to the people who once turned against you because of them. They share a new story, a narrative in which they are now the brave one, admitting their faults, trying to heal. They stir empathy, not through real transformation, but with emotional language and polished delivery. And once again, you're placed in the uncomfortable position of being misunderstood. People start asking you, what if they really have changed? They seem so remorseful. Don't we all deserve a second chance? And suddenly, you're not just facing the narcissist's lies. You're facing the weight of a society that often sympathizes more with the one who sheds tears than with the one who chooses silence. But you know the truth. You've heard their apologies before, followed by the same behavior that caused the apology in the first place. You've seen those tears, not from remorse, but from the frustration of losing control over you. You've lived that toxic cycle. Apologize. Forgive, repeat, and each time it left deeper scars. Playing the role of the repentant sinner is their final tactic, reserved for when all other masks have failed. They hope your compassion, the very trait they once exploited, will once again open a door. They hope you'll hesitate, reconsider. Ask yourself, what if this time it's real? And all it takes is one small crack in your defenses for them to slip through, not to love you, but to resume the game of power and dominance. So the real question isn't whether you believe they've changed. The real question is whether you still believe in your own intuition and lived experience. Do you have the courage to say, it doesn't matter if you've changed. What matters is that I deserve a life where I don't have to guard my heart every day, where I don't question the motives of the one beside me. Because someone who truly regrets their actions won't need to perform. They won't seek an audience to validate their change. They won't come back to the place where they once caused harm, demanding a redemptive ending. They will walk away quietly, do the work on themselves, and not expect reconciliation as a reward for their so-called remorse. A narcissist cannot do that. For them, everything is performance. And this role, the repentant sinner, though it may appear less aggressive, is still just another tool to regain access to the emotional supply they once owned. They are not grieving the pain they caused. They are grieving their inability to keep causing it. Remember this, your compassion is not a weakness. But do not let it be the reason someone is allowed to come back and hurt you again. Forgiveness is for your peace, not a ticket back into your life. And sometimes, saying no to a manipulative apology is the most loving thing you can do for yourself. You do not owe them a return. You do not owe them closure. What you owe is to yourself peace, healing, and the unwavering belief that you deserve more than recycled pain dressed up as regret. 4. Threatening self-harm to manipulate you. When all the other performances fail, from playing the wounded victim, to launching a smear campaign, to acting like a remorseful sinner without swaying you, the narcissist resorts to their final, most dangerous move, threatening to harm themselves in order to pressure you into coming back. This is no longer subtle emotional manipulation. This is their ultimate weapon, the one they use when they feel they've completely lost control. You might start receiving vague, unsettling messages like, "I don't know what the point of living is anymore," or, "If one day I disappear, I hope you'll understand why." These are not explicit threats, but they are enough to plant fear, to shake you, to make you worry, and most importantly, to pull you back into the role of the rescuer they've exploited so many times before. They know exactly who you are. They know you have a compassionate heart. They know that if you even suspect their safety is in jeopardy, you might soften, you might reach out, you might check in. And that alone is all they need: your attention, your presence. Even just one message, one call, one response for them. That's a win. This tactic is incredibly dangerous, not just because it exploits your empathy, but because it traps you in a spiral of guilt. If you don't respond, you're haunted by the question, what if something terrible happens? But if you do respond, you're pulled right back into the role you've fought so hard to escape, the one where you're somehow responsible for their emotions, their well-being, their life. You need to understand something crucial: you are not responsible for anyone else's mental health or behavior. Real pain, if it exists, must be addressed with real healing, with professional help, with personal accountability. No one has the right to make you feel responsible for saving them, especially someone who has systematically hurt you. In many cases, the narcissist doesn't actually intend to harm themselves, but they know how to create a fog of fear and urgency, drama, and emotional chaos that keeps you tethered to them. It becomes a kind of emotional life or death game, staged by their need to dominate and control. And if you're not careful, you'll fall right back into the role of the reluctant savior, sacrificing your peace to rescue someone who doesn't want healing, just control. Worse, if you remain silent, they may start speaking publicly about their despair, twisting the story once more. She knew I was breaking down, and she didn't even care. I begged for help, and he turned his back on me. And just like that, you're once again painted as the villain in a story you never agreed to be part of. The truth is, no one has the right to turn their suffering into a weapon. No one has the right to use the threat of self-harm as a leash to pull you back. That is not love. That is control. That is moral distortion, turning your kindness into a chain. If you find yourself in this situation, stay calm but firm. Do not respond with emotion. Respond with clarity. You can say something like, "I'm sorry you're feeling this way, but I am not the right person to help you through this. Please reach out to a mental health professional." And then hold your boundary. Don't let guilt trick you. The guilt you're feeling isn't because you've done something wrong. It's because you've been conditioned to believe that love means saving someone. But real love does not demand the sacrifice of your safety. Real love does not ask you to trade peace of mind for the illusion of rescue. You are not a therapist. You are not an emotional shelter for a storm you didn't cause. You have the right to walk away. You have the right to protect yourself. And most importantly, you have the right not to respond. Because the less you respond, the more you disrupt their familiar patterns of control, the more you maintain your silence, the more they're forced to face themselves, and that, above all, is what they fear most. And if their pain is real, then the kindest thing you can do is not enable it. Remember this: you lived in their shadow long enough. Do not let a new form of threat, no matter how cleverly disguised, pull you back into the darkness you fought so hard to escape. Your safety and your peace should never be placed on the bargaining table in a relationship built on fear and emotional blackmail. 5. Using a new partner to provoke you. When every previous tactic has failed, when you don't waver in the face of their apologies, aren't moved by their fake remorse, and remain calm despite their veiled threats of self-harm, the narcissist turns to another calculated, cruel strategy. They use a new partner to provoke you, to hurt you, and most of all, to get a reaction. This isn't just about them having someone new. That in itself is not surprising. It's part of the typical narcissistic cycle. They always need a new source of emotional supply to replace you, to maintain their illusion of power and self-worth. But this time, the new relationship isn't about love. It's a weapon, a carefully staged tactic designed to stab at your still healing wounds, to make sure you see it, hear about it, feel it, and ultimately lose your sense of control. Suddenly, you start seeing accidental social media posts, smiling faces, intimate hugs, captions like, "Peace is being with someone who sees you," or "finally found the right one." Words that, on the surface, seem harmless, but they hit like a knife to the heart. Because these words are aimed, not at the world, but at you. And what makes this tactic especially effective is that it's not an open attack, but it ignites all the pain you've been trying so hard to bury. You start questioning yourself, is their love real? When did they start? Was I just a placeholder all along? And suddenly, you're no longer living in the present, you're pulled back into the past, lost in a maze of unanswered questions, pointless comparisons, and a false sense of defeat, even though you were the one who had the strength to walk away. But here's what you need to remember. Their goal isn't happiness, it's your reaction. If you stay silent, they intensify the display. They become more public, more affectionate in ways you're guaranteed to see. If you block them, they find indirect ways for the information to reach you. If you react even just with a comment, a glance, a whispered frustration to a mutual friend, they seize that moment and twist it into proof. See, they're still obsessed with me. That's the victory they crave. A sign that they still have power over you. The new person isn't a romantic partner, they're a prop. Another actor in the narcissist's theater of control. Maybe they're unaware. Maybe they're the next victim. But in the narcissist's eyes, they're just a tool, a trigger, a reflection to show you what you've lost, to convince you you've been replaced, to make you feel like you lost the game. But here's the truth you must hold on to. You didn't lose. You escaped. This tactic of using someone new to provoke you only proves one thing: they never saw love as real. To them, every relationship is a stage, and on that stage, there is no room for genuine love, only image, only control, only ego. If you feel pain seeing them happy with someone new, that's natural. But distinguish the pain of losing someone from the pain of being manipulated into believing you were never enough. You're not hurting because they found love. You're hurting because you once believed they loved you, and now they're using that very illusion to shatter you all over again. Do not become an audience member in a play that was never about truth. Don't get drawn into a game you chose to leave. They want you to react, so the less you do, the more you win. Your silence isn't indifference. It's a declaration: I am no longer a pawn in your game. And that's what the narcissist cannot stand, that you've reclaimed your self-worth. Not through their validation, not through someone new, but through your own freedom. Through your decision to walk away and not look back. So if you see them flaunting their new love, Remember this: people who are truly happy don't need to prove anything. If they're trying so hard to show it, it's not joy. It's desperation, dressed as confidence. Let them keep their stage. But you continue your life. A life that doesn't need comparison, doesn't need reaction, doesn't need to compete, because the one who is truly won is the one who is no longer being controlled. When a narcissist realizes they've lost a real one, someone who once loved them with genuine care, who forgave, who sacrificed, who saw the parts of them they couldn't face, it's not just a loss. It's a direct blow to their inflated yet hollow ego. They don't mourn the loss of you. They mourn the loss of control, of the mirror that once reflected back the version of themselves they wanted to believe in. They might find someone new, rebuild their life, paint portraits of artificial happiness, but deep down, they know they'll never again feel what they once felt with you. Because a real person, a real love, a kind soul doesn't come around twice, especially not for someone who lives in a world of lies and manipulation. And if you were the one who walked away, the one who chose yourself over silent suffering, you're not just a survivor, you are the victor. Not because you made them regret it, but because you had the courage to walk away from a nightmare dressed in promises. And that's something a narcissist can never do: love genuinely, lose honestly, and grow truly.